All right, mom, dad, we've all been there, the time when Johnny or Janie decides to have the meltdown in the middle of the store. Question for you. Do you A, run away and say, not my kid, B, get so embarrassed you feel all the blood draining from your face, or C, calmly talk to them and say, that's not the correct way to behave in public? Well, the answer, of course, should be C, but for most of us, A or B is probably more like it. So joining us today is clinical psychologist Laura Markham with the answer to how we can achieve peaceful parenting, thus having happy kids. Dr. Markham, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've got more than 20 years in this field. That's a pretty remarkable thing to have done as far as dealing with parents and children. Tell us about that.
Well, in my time working with parents and kids, I have learned that every parent does the best he or she can with their children and wants the best for their children. But so often, parents get down the wrong track by yelling, for instance, where we train our child not to listen until we raise our voice. And what kids need in order to cooperate is to know we're on the same team. They need to know we actually care about their happiness even when we have to say no. So you absolutely might be saying, no, you can't have that cookie. I'm sorry. No, it's bedtime. Yes, it's time for your bath. You're setting limits all day, every day. But you're doing it in a way that understands your child's perspective. You wish you could have the cookie. I bet when you're a grown-up, you'll never go to bed. You'll play all night, every night, won't you? And you know, when we react to kids that way and they feel understood, they don't have to prove their point, and we're not teaching them to yell back at us.
Now, there was a time.
So kids are much more cooperative.
There was a time when spanking was sort of accepted. Yelling, certainly not so much. And it really shouldn't be that way. It's just the wrong thing to do, isn't it?
Well, all of us, when we're pushed over the edge, we will yell. That's the normal reaction of a human being. So it's our responsibility as parents to model emotional regulation. That's how kids learn it. You know, when we yell, it's not so much it's a bad thing, it's just that we are teaching them to yell back.
Right.
And it's not effective to teach them to think for themselves or to behave.
Okay, now you've written a book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting. That really sounds awfully easy.
It's the hardest thing we do. Parenting is so hard. And in order to stop yelling, you have to manage your own emotions, and that is really hard. That's why the whole first section of the book is about regulation for parents. You know, most parenting books are how to control your kid. The first section of this book is how to control yourself. And then after that, we get into how to connect with your child so they want to behave.
So you also say in the book to avoid problem behavior by addressing the emotional need that's causing it in the first place.
Well, when you think about it, what is acting out? The child is acting out feelings they can't express in words. So once you address the feeling or the need that's not being addressed, the behavior vanishes. So if you have a kid in the supermarket who's having a really hard time, think about it from their point of view. It's boring. So if you give your child a shopping list and they're responsible for finding the can of peas or the toilet paper, they suddenly are contributors to the household. They're suddenly engaged intellectually. They're having a good time. They're not bored. They're not having a meltdown in the supermarket.
Dr. Markham, define first for me what helicopter parents are, and then what would you say to helicopter parents?
Well, helicoptering is somebody who hovers more than you do. So it's a fine line. It's hard to know where that line is. But basically, parents should ask themselves, am I doing it for my child, or even ordering them around so they're not thinking for themselves, or am I teaching my child to think for himself? So if it's morning time and you're trying to get out of the house, it's natural to start barking orders at your kids. But if instead you can train yourself to say, what do you have to do before you leave the house, Johnny? And Johnny says, I have to find my shoes and I have to find my truck for show and tell. Johnny's starting to organize himself, and by the time he's 8, he won't be forgetting things, and he will in the morning be ready to go without you having to say a word, because he'll be practiced at it, because you've helped him learn how to do it. So a helicopter parent does it for the child. Instead, we want to be the kind of parent who supports our child to learn to do it themselves.
Dr. Markham, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. What about a tiger mom?
Oh, tiger moms are the parents who don't listen to their kids. Tiger moms are the ones who say, my way or the highway. And the problem with that is that kids rebel. Sooner or later, they rebel against it. And also, even if they don't, by the time they leave your household, I've seen it happen too often where kids go off to college and then they just fall apart because you're not there organizing and pushing them. It's really important to listen to who our child is. You know, if your child hates soccer, it doesn't matter that you were a soccer star in high school and, you know, your child maybe wants to be an artist. Nurture your child's unique gifts. We each come into the world with unique gifts that we want to hone, and if we teach our children to push through the blocks that inevitably arise, to master those gifts and get good at things and share them with the world, what more could we ask for our children?
Dr. Laura Markham, author of Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. A lot of great information.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Well, while we're talking kids, have you considered giving yours the gift of fun and games this Christmas? You know, there are a lot of options and so many benefits. We're going to explain next.